So welcome to today's episode of Culture Architects. I'm pleased to have with me today Crystal Hanlon. Crystal is the Senior Vice President and Culture Officer at the Home Depot. As I'm sure most people know, Home Depot is the world's largest home improvement retailer, founded in 1978. Crystal began her journey with the company back in 1985 as a part-time cashier, believe it or not, while studying at the University of Houston. Over the decades, she's been there 39 years now, she has steadily risen through the ranks. She's played so many different roles. She's also earned a spot on Fortune magazine's list of the most powerful women multiple times during this period of her career, proving herself to be a key witness to Home Depot's growth and culture building. In 2023, after almost 40 years, as I said, with the company, Crystal was appointed Senior Vice President and Culture Officer. So nobody knows more about the culture of Home Depot than Crystal. So Crystal, welcome to the Culture Architects podcast.
Thank you, David. I'm excited to be with you today.
That's great. So let's go back and just for our audience sake, let's get a little bit of history here. So I'm taking us back to 1985, 39 years ago. What led you to go work at Home Depot? How'd that happen?
This is an interesting story because back then I was going to University of Houston to be a physical therapist. And
physical
I was
therapy, Home Depot, that makes sense.
I was upside down. I needed to pay my bills, and I saw a now hiring sign at Home Depot.
Right.
We didn't even know what it was because I started in Texas. It wasn't real famous at the time. And I went in and got a job, and they gave me the $5 an hour. And I got to tell you, best thing that ever happened to me because I started to really understand the culture. And when I first started, I didn't. They kept telling me how great Home Depot was and all the dreams that you can make happen with Home Depot. I had a great assistant manager named Butch Moody. He was amazing. A lot of passion telling me the dream of Home Depot. And basically two things happened. He kept coming every day telling me how great this culture and company was. And then we did a Team Depot project as a cashier. We went out and built a little wheelchair ramp for a little boy. And when he rolled down that ramp, and we pieced that thing together and he rolled down that ramp, his joy and the tears in his parents' eyes just made me understand the orange-blooded culture. And I started to fall in love with my coworkers and the company. And it's just been an amazing journey. I'm so thankful I found that now hiring sign.
That's very cool. So you graduated college. You were going to be a physical therapist, you said. And so what caused you to say, well, I know you loved the Home Depot culture back then, but if you were thinking of being a physical therapist, that it would be unusual for someone to say, well, I think I'll skip the physical therapy route and go work for a home building retailer.
Absolutely. It was the craziest thing. Everybody thought it was crazy. But I'll tell you, the reason I stayed is because I felt the values of the company. Our 8 fundamental values and everything that we stood for align with my personal value statement. And the camaraderie and the teamwork, it was like an orange-blooded family. And I felt committed to our people and our customers. And it just gave me this purpose, my why. It gave me a beautiful purpose inside of a company at the same time in my personal life because it aligned with all of my personal values. And, we're allowed to give back. We can make so many differences in the lives of others. And it just fit. So I learned everything I know about retail from the cashier all the way to president at Home Depot because of the learning and the training they gave us.
And so talk about some of the different roles that you've played over your career. I know you've gone through quite a few different, from starting as a cashier to your role now.
Oh, David, I've moved up in every role. I was department head, assistant manager, store manager. That was one of my favorite roles because I had about 115 associates I got to see every day. It was like a family of 115 people, watching them grow and develop. That was one of my favorites. And then I was district manager of several stores and then moved up to vice president of operations and then vice president of merchandising. So I kind of had both. And those were beautiful roles. And then after that, I was division president of the Northeast Division, one of the biggest divisions in the company. And it was the most rewarding part of my career because I had so many people and I could change so many lives. But then my favorite role of all times is the role I hold now. Because this culture officer role means that I work for everybody and I make a difference and I teach them the dream of Home Depot. And I want people to have that opportunity because, like I said, when I started, I had absolutely zero trying to survive life. And I've been blessed with all of the people and the relationships. It's like a family inside of a family. It's amazing. And so this role, I can give back every day to the lives of others. And to me, that is so rewarding. So this is my favorite chapter I've had.
So as you've stepped into this role, we'll go back and go through a lot more of that history. But as you stepped into this role, was this a new role that was created and you were the person in it, or was there somebody in that role before that you replaced?
There was somebody in the role for about a year and a half, but when I took it, they expanded it to where I had communication. So I had a vehicle to tell the story of our people and to connect with the heartstrings of our people. So it was more of an expanded role when I took it. And it has given me the platform to connect with all of our associates, the 475,000 associates out there through storytelling and through hope, telling the story of hope of what they can do. 90% of the population that runs Home Depot started it on the grassroots of the store or, entry-level positions and have now created wealth for their families and their friends. It's just this amazing story that people really don't understand about retail. I mean, people think retail, I don't want to be in retail, but I'm telling you, it is the best place to be. Only at Home Depot, though. Everybody else, you can't go anywhere and have the culture that we have. We bring it to life every day. We live it.
So let's go back to how that all started. So I know the two founders. I'm seeing them. Those of you that will see video of this will be able to see this, but those that are listening won't. So I'm looking at Crystal, and behind her are paintings of the two founders, Arthur Blank and who's the other founder?
Bernie Marcus.
And Bernie Marcus. And so did the values that you have, your values wheel with your 8 corporate values, did it start with the two of them, or where did that originally come from?
Yes, it did. And this is what's such an amazing story. Bernie was my mentor coming through the ranks.
Okay.
He's amazing. So is Arthur. Both of those individuals are unbelievably passionate. And when they started Home Depot, they'd gotten fired from Handy Dan, so they didn't have anything. They created our story on a napkin. And when you think about where it started, they laid the 8 core values out because they wanted to be a good employer for people and to make a difference for the customer. So they aligned those 8 values many years ago. And then the inverted pyramid they put in place where the leadership team works for the people and works for the customer, whatever the customer needs. And it's a different leadership style that they created many years ago. And those are our symbols, the inverted pyramid and the 8 core values. And every decision we've made, we have lived by these 8 core values, taking care of people. I mean, it's fundamental, but it's also a recipe for success because it aligns everybody. And we bring it to life in all of our decision making. So they started it many years ago, beginning of the company, and it has lived strong throughout my entire 39 years. And I'm sure everybody else's, because it gives us our compass of the North Star. What do we need to make a decision on? Let's run it through the values and see the right answer. Find the right answer through that.
So let's. I want to get more into I would call it maybe the nuts and bolts of how you teach, support, reinforce that culture in an organization that's as large and diverse as Home Depot. You said 475,000 associates. That's a lot of people, and candidly, most of my experience and most of the people that we talk to on our podcasts are, I would call them smaller to mid-size entrepreneurial companies that have somebody started it and they have 50 or 100 or 200 or 300 people. And, how you go about building culture in a company of 200 or 300 people is very different than the challenges that you're faced with 500,000 people all over the world. So how do you make that real and consistent across an organization that large and widespread?
Well, we had to find a common definition of culture because every leader you talk to would have a little different flavor. So we set the stage on what culture really means for Home Depot. And our culture is a culture of safety and service for our associates, our customers, and our communities. That's the fundamental line of our culture. But culture you have to bring to life. So when we talk about it, this is the fundamental of what our culture is. How do you bring that to life with the inverted pyramid and the values wheel? the way we do that is through storytelling of our people and the amazing heroes that are in aprons every day, that do the right thing, that connect the hearts of our people with our leadership teams. Everyone knows that the way to bring culture to life is connection. And we do that through our HDTV studio, through our storytelling, through our leadership training. We connect our why. And our why is to make a difference for our customers, bring their dreams to life through having great, happy associates. And our leadership team works on that every day to have an environment to where you bring that culture to life in a store. If you've got 150 people in a store, how do you connect their hearts? And the way you do that is you stop, listen, you connect their hearts with the story of the great opportunities at Home Depot that exist, because it's real.
Mm-hmm.
And, we do it from a training perspective. We train every day on culture. We walk the talk on culture, bringing those values to life and really focusing on the inverted pyramid and making sure we take the time to serve our people so that they can serve the customer and the communities. We do so much in the communities as well, and just really connecting them with their why.
So when you talk about you train every day on your culture, what does that look? I get hired. I'm an associate. I'm a cashier like you were all those years ago, and I'm working at my local Home Depot store. How am I getting trained in that culture?
Everybody goes through orientation, and that's
Okay.
through our store manager training the associates.
Okay.
And they talk about the culture of Home Depot and the opportunity to make all your dreams come true. And they tell stories about what they've done. And most of our leaders, like I said, started on the floor and can talk about what it's done for their lives. And they tell those stories to connect with the associates that are coming in. And then we've got Team Depot training. We've got coaches within the store that talk and teach the culture,
Mm-hmm.
and really try to make it through the walking the talk, with the leadership teams, to make them feel part of something bigger than they are. And when you connect those heartstrings at the good onset, they stay more committed as they come through their journey.
So I'm guessing when we talk, and there's so many different places we can go in this conversation, but what you just said led me to think about turnover. And I'm imagining that, you mentioned the fact that you've got many of the people who are leaders today grew up in the Home Depot culture, bleed orange, as you would say, and they've grown up in the system. They've stayed for all these years. Obviously, people talk about turnover as a real challenge in retail, maybe more so than many industries. So I would assume that you must have some statistics about typical turnover rates in that industry and where Home Depot ranks in that. What would be normal turnover, and where's Home Depot in that?
We've actually reduced our turnover because we did, throughout COVID and all the changing environments, we had higher turnover in those years.
Sure.
But we've reduced that. And the way we do that is to connect the associates coming in, because we have 6 generations in our stores now, mm-hmm. 6 generations, and they each have a different hook of why do they want to stay with Home Depot, right? Mm-hmm. You have to change your style for each generation.
Okay.
So we're doing training now on the different generations and why do particular groups want to stay with us. And that's helping on our overall turnover. And then the VOA, voice of the associate, listening to their needs and reacting and taking action on their feedback. We try to do that as well so that we can have a good work environment mm-hmm. for everybody.
We talk about culture all the time. And one of the questions that some will ask, it's intuitively obvious to you and me that if we take care of our people, they're going to take care of better. They're going to do a better job taking care of customers. They're going to stay with us longer. There are all these benefits that come. And yet there are those who, outside of the intuitively obvious fact of that, will want to know, well, can you prove that to me? Like, what's the return on investment in all this effort that we're putting into culture? And so how else do you measure the return on investment? The company must make more money because of this.
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
not the only reason to do it. So how do you measure that? How do you know what the return on investment on your culture is?
So we have a leadership behavior score for every store. Mm-hmm. And you can tell based off the leadership behavior scores where we are from a cultural perspective. And mm-hmm. that's where we really measure it to say, okay, are we doing really well? And obviously turnover plays a big part of that because we want to keep our people as long as we can. But it's a proven fact. If you get people to connect with your culture and have their why, that they are more committed, 30% more committed in most cases because of their understanding of our culture.
Mm-hmm.
And so we do that through leadership behaviors, respect for all associates, and making sure that we have that good environment for them. Because a lot of times when you're coming into one of our stores as an associate, the environment's not perfect out there.
Mm-hmm.
Many times when an associate's coming into their workday for Home Depot, they're in a safer environment than in their own homes in many cases in some markets. And so how do we make it the best experience for them to where they feel the joy and the fun at work at the same time, give everything they've got to make the customer happy? And that's what Bernie always said. You take care of your associates, they'll take care of the customer, and everything else takes care of itself. Bernie himself quoted that, and he taught me that many years ago. And I believe that to be true when you think about the stores that do really well. The stores that have high leadership behaviors and great engagement scores do much better from a sales perspective and from an overall perspective because you've got engaged associates that really care about the customer. And you can feel it. That's what Ted calls the buzz in our stores. That buzz is connection. And when you've got a connected environment in your store, you can walk in and people are happy. They're waiting on the customer. They're doing the emotional connection with the customer. And you can feel if a store has that buzz immediately upon entering.
Yeah. So the way you can then, in a sense, measure or justify, I say justify, I don't mean like, we got to prove that this is really valid, but you can, what's the word I want? You can verify the impact of culture, if I'm hearing you right, by saying, look, we got lots and lots of stores, and we can track which ones have the best engagement scores, which ones have the best leadership scores, and map that. We could graph that. And if we graph that, we would see this strong correlation between higher leadership scores and higher engagement scores equal higher sales performance.
Absolutely. There's no question. You can feel it when you walk into a store. I can tell you in 15 minutes in a store, whether the culture's alive or not, and the connection, because it's all about connecting the hearts of people. We're in a people business, right? I mean, customers, associates, and communities. The other thing that connects them is the Team Depot projects that we do, where we do work across the country in all of our communities. And that really connects the why you want to shop at Home Depot. You see these orange shirts out there changing lives every day, making a difference for our veterans, making a difference in the communities. And you see the sea of orange giving their volunteer hours to make a difference in people's lives. And then people connect. And that's what makes people, one of the reasons they turn left into Home Depot versus any other competitor, because they have that connection in their communities. And that's been extremely well thought out from an overall perspective to give back.
Nice. So when you said that when you walk into a store, you can feel the vibe and you can tell when you've got the buzz, as you said, Ted talks about. And for those that don't know, Ted Decker is the CEO. So that's the Ted we're talking about. When you walk into a store and the vibe isn't there, I mean, if you've got hundreds and hundreds of, how many stores do you have right now, roughly?
2,300 plus.
So 2,300 stores. There have to be some stores where they're not performing at the same level that others are from a culture standpoint. You got 2,300 of them. They're not all going to be perfect. When you see a store that isn't thriving from a culture standpoint, what's your experience as to what are the biggest drivers for that? Like what causes one store to not be thriving when others are?
I tell you, the key ingredient is leadership when you have a lack of culture, because too many times in those situations, either the leader is not engaging with their associates, not taking the time to hear their needs, to help them to walk the talk from a customer perspective and generate that excitement in the store. And, that to me is where the culture goes south. If you've got a store manager or an assistant manager that truly is not living the values of our fundamental 8 values in our inverted pyramid, obviously you're not going to have the connections with the people. And that's one of the biggest opportunities for us. That's why we spend so much time leaning in on leadership training and culture training to make them understand our why so that we can convey that in the store and bring people in with us and keep them with us.
Yeah. So you talk about bringing people in. I'm curious, what do you do from a hiring standpoint to increase the odds that the person you're hiring is likely to be a good fit in the Home Depot culture?
We have a talent acquisition team that does the interview questions and asks the proper questions to make sure that to see if they could be a good fit for us. Obviously, they weed out who isn't and who is and can do centralized hiring for our field. And that's been very beneficial because they ask those key questions to try to find the best candidates we can. And obviously, we're not going to get that right 100% of the time, but we're doing very well on that.
And do you know what some of those kinds of questions are like? How do you surface if somebody's going to be a good fit for Home Depot?
Well, obviously, you have to ask the question, do you want to wait on a customer? What is your experience with the customer? How do you feel about a customer experience? And make sure that they're engaging, make sure they ask those basic questions. I haven't got the list of the questions for you, but I can get those. No,
I'm just curious if you, off the top of your head, know, we always ask these kinds of things because that really gets to the heart of it. So let's go back to, I want to go back to your start at Home Depot. And you said you were in college, you were going to be a physical therapist, and you decided you had this experience at Home Depot and said, oh my God, this just really connects with me. And I'm curious about, often I find at least, that as I reflect back on things that I learned, I see them differently today than I did then. So let me give you a simple example. What I learned in my first company, I built a company. I was the CEO of a company for many years, and we were known for our culture. It's what made us successful. It's what led to all the things that I teach and write about today. But in my early days as a leader, I wasn't actually thinking about culture. I was thinking about what I call standards, that I had very high standards for how I wanted our people to operate. And I realized early on that the only way I can get that consistently happening is for me to articulate those and to teach it to people so that everybody understood this is how we do things here. It was only in retrospect that I realized, I guess that's kind of really what culture is. This was back in the early 80s. And so, culture wasn't such a hot topic, as you know, back then. It was more of an unusual topic. And so again, I wasn't thinking about culture at that time. I was just thinking about standards. It was only later that I had a deeper appreciation for what I had done is I had built culture, even though I wasn't thinking of building culture at the time. And so I'm curious from your perspective, you're getting out of college. Not many college kids, and maybe you were different, but not most college kids aren't thinking about culture. They just later realize, I guess what really drew me is the culture. So when in your career did this light bulb go off for you that culture was really important? Was it right from the beginning, or was it later upon further reflection of those experiences, do you think?
I believe if you think back, because I've been asked this question many times. And it all goes back. The first few months I didn't, obviously, even though I was in orientation and they talked about the orange blood. I'm like, okay, whatever. I got
work to do.
And I just knew I needed to come back to pay my bills. But what really changed me, and I started to understand it, was honestly connecting with the people that I was working with. We were all in there trying to make it together. And connecting with them and making a difference for people. Like I said, on the Team Depot project, that made me understand culture, because it made me understand that culture is all about connection. And for me, it was making a difference for others that changed me with Home Depot. Because when we would go out on those Team Depot projects, we would get to see people that were just trying to make it through life, that couldn't make ends meet. And we were out there making their environment better. And honestly, it connected with my heartstrings. And the connection of the heartstrings with the associates that I worked with, it was like we were a family inside of a family with the orange Home Depot apron. And, when they first said orange blooded, I thought they were crazy. But I'm telling you, after the first couple months with Butch Moody, he kept coming back and telling me all these things I could do. And then I'm still thinking at that point to be a physical therapist, but he was relentless in his approach to tell me about Home Depot and all the things you could do and tell me his
Mm-hmm.
story. And then the team depots that we did and just making it through the day together, it just connected. And then it became more about not just me, but making it better for my peers, the
Mm-hmm.
customers, and, just seeing people be happier based on the experience you have with them was our culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I did feel it. And that's what made me stay because I had no intentions of staying. I
I
never
wouldn't
thought
think.
I'd be here. I'm so thankful I am, but I never planned it. It was not
Mm-hmm.
a planned thing. And that
Mm-hmm.
many of our leaders will tell you the same thing. We were just coming in trying to make it for the summer
Yeah.
and ended up, most people that are leaders with us will tell you, they didn't plan on staying. They were just coming in to pay their bills and try to make it and ended up falling in love with the culture. It's the craziest thing, but it's real. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, it was a couple months into it.
Interesting. So talk about the inverted pyramid a little bit for our audience. So tell me, what is I mean, I know it's about leaders serving the associates, but talk more about the inverted pyramid and how does that show up in life?
Oh, yeah. Bernie and Arthur started this years ago when they started the company. And the reason they did it is they wanted to have the customer at the top of the pyramid to say, we
Mm-hmm.
all work for the customer because we can't stay in business if we aren't paying our bills, right? So the customer's first, the associate second, because the associate takes care of the customer, and we can't have either one without each other, not in
Mm-hmm.
today's environment. So the inverted pyramid is the CEO at the bottom of the pyramid works for everybody that's out there to make a difference, customers and associates. And then every level of leadership is serving the
Mm-hmm.
associates and the
Got it.
customer. But the customer is the top because the
Mm-hmm.
customer is the most important, obviously, because they're paying our bills and they're shopping our stores, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
those are the most important to us. And that viewpoint was the foundation for the creation of Home Depot to say, you know what? We're here for two reasons. We're here to make a difference in the lives of our people and our customers, to
Mm-hmm.
make our customers' dreams come true. And if you listen to Bernie and Arthur talk about it, I have listened to them so many times in my career. And they talk about the fact that you've got to listen and you've got to hear what your associates are saying. And what does the customer need that we don't have? And, how can we fix the customer's problem or the associate's problem? And what can we do to make a difference? And they lived it every day. And we still live it to this day. I always tell everybody, I get up every morning to make a difference for our associates and our customers because that's what it's all about. And it really gives you a sense of purpose
Mm-hmm.
because you're working for people.
Mm-hmm. So you've been at this for a long time now. And my experience is that anybody who's been doing something for a long time has inevitably made some mistakes along the way. We all do. And if we're reflective and thoughtful, we look back and say, boy, I should have seen that, or I learned something there. So what are some of the mistakes you've made along the way in your stepping stones throughout your growth? And what did you learn from them?
David, I've made a lot of mistakes. I think we all go through mistakes in life, right?
As long as we're learning from them.
Oh, yeah. I always have learned from them.
So what are a couple of big ones?
One of my biggest mistakes as I came through the ranks was I wanted to be the best, obviously, and I wanted to do it my way. Like, I wanted it to be done my way because I felt like, I knew what I was doing and I wanted to make sure it was my way. But the fact is, I learned that other people can get to the same goal in a different way, and they can do it much better than I ever did it. Right. And you have to let people run and you have to let people be who they are and bring those differences in and value those differences to where you can achieve the goal, but you're not trying to do everything. Right. Because that just causes a lot of extra hours that are unnecessary. Because in many cases, once I learned that, I learned to let go and lead, let go and let people get to the objective in their way, many cases better than the way I would have gotten there, and not hold on too tight. That was one of my biggest lessons. And the other was to make sure I had balance. I've spent a lot of years working in retail and, trying to be the best. It means you're going to work pretty hard. And I learned balance and my why. Why am I doing everything? What's important? And important is also your family, your friends, the lives that you touch. and learning how to let go and find that balance was a huge lesson for me that
Mm-hmm.
has added a tremendous amount of value because I learned my why many years ago. And I try to focus on that every day so that I understand, why am I
Mm-hmm.
doing all this? And, it's no good if I get to the end of my life and nobody's there with me. I've got to do it
Mm-hmm.
for the right reasons. And so that was a huge lesson, the balance piece for me.
Mm-hmm. So I want to take us just in a different direction a little bit. And I'm curious about one of the things that we teach in CultureWise and in my company is the importance of creating rituals to embed the practices that are important to us. And I learned this years ago from Ritz-Carlton originally. So you may or may not know, you probably know of Horst Schulze. He was so famous for what he created at Ritz-Carlton. And I had him on our podcast, and we talked a lot about one of the rituals is the word I use for it, is that they do at Ritz-Carlton's. They have 20 basics that they teach, which are their kind of standards of service performance. And they take one each day and they focus on it. And they focus on it through a ritual known as the daily lineup. So in every store, every Ritz-Carlton property around the world, team members get together at the beginning of every shift and they spend a couple minutes talking about today's basic. So today's basic number one, and every Ritz-Carlton property in the world is focused on basic number one today, and they're talking about it in the daily lineup. Tomorrow, every Ritz-Carlton employee in every property around the world is talking about number two, and the next day, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And every 20 days, they go back to the beginning. So they have this ritual of the daily lineup, which is how they have a structure to connect people every single day to the things that are important to them. I'm curious, are there rituals like that, whether they be daily lineups, stand-up meetings, other things? Like, is there any structure to how do you teach with enough repetition, whether it's your 8 core values or it's the inverted pyramid? Is there anything like that you do at Home Depot?
Yes, we have morning meetings every morning. Okay. And throughout the shifts. And what we talk about is customer service stories and how we bring those to life. It may be based around a value on the values wheel, or it may be based on GET, which is greet, engage, and thank our customers. And we bring that to life with our people by telling, what was your store? Where did you give great service? Little things like that. Short meetings, but it gets like a pep rally for our people to get them motivated and excited about the day. And then we do training with our leadership training all the time on GET and customer service and basics on our values. We're, David, one of the things for us is we constantly try to bring our values to life. And we try to teach on our values with our associates through our coach associate program and talk about the different values on the values wheel. So we have rituals like that to where we stay focused. And then we also do orange highlights, and the orange highlights goes across to all stores, and it's stories of culture, stories of service, and how we drive that in our stores and with our communities. And so we have platforms to be able to do that to where we can touch all stores. On Mondays specifically, we have something called Same Page, and Same Page is a short broadcast that goes to all store leaders. And many times on those store leadership conversations, we're talking about what is the priorities for the week, what does service look like. We tell a story about somebody that's done something amazing, an associate, because we have so many amazing people that do things when no one's looking. Right. And we kind of highlight some of those stories so everybody kind of knows this is the goal.
So Same Page is how that gets out on Mondays.
Oh yeah, it's wonderful. I mean, it connects all of us from Monday on.
And Ritz-Carlton, again, in a similar way, when they do their daily basic, there is a story that comes from headquarters of some amazing story that somebody did, typically related to that basic, but that story is being told in every property around the world on that particular day. And so they cycle through them on a daily basis. So you've got your Monday same day. What are some of the other things like the same day that you do I use the word ritual in a ritualistic way. It happens. It's just part of our routine. Every Monday we do this. Every Tuesday we do that. What are some of the other routines like that are sort of part of the foundation of how Home Depot operates that drives this stuff?
Well, it's all about connection, right? So we have Viva Engage, which we have platforms for every region, every store where they can connect, communicate on Viva Engage and tell their stories. We have community captains which basically drive our culture stories in the stores, because we try to work through our leadership teams to say, okay, how can I get as many connection points out there as possible? And our community captains, our Team Depot captains, our cultural captains can tell those stories and get it on a broader basis. So district wide, you got those stories being collected. And then we highlight those on our Orange Spotlight, My Apron. We tell those stories. And we've got an HGTV studio that we use to get it, we'll video these things going on, or we might go to a store opening and see all the excitement that's happening and share it with the entire company. And, when you think about ritual on a day-to-day basis, it's connection with that store leader and the team that's working in the store that day throughout the shifts. So we have to do that not only on the opening shift, but you're also going to have to connect through your leadership team on the 1 to 10 shift, and to make sure that we're also with the night teams and making sure that we're touching each one of those platforms. So all those connection points are critically important. And we try to set that up through our same page on Monday and then our pep rallies that we have, which are very short because obviously you're trying to bring everybody in. You got customers coming in. So we have short snippets, but they're moments that matter. And the other piece, the connection piece that people tend to forget and tend to lose is what I told you on the volunteer work base on Team Depot and community engagement. Because those moments when everybody comes together, regardless of title, it doesn't matter what title you are. You can be a cashier or division president. When you're on that site, you're just like everybody else out there to make a difference for somebody next to you. And that unites our people. If they go into a Team Depot, that's a ritual we do on a consistent basis. And when they're out there, that connection that we feel, it translates into the store, because then you have those points of connection. So we've got all kinds of things that we do to try to connect, because I really think in this role, one of the things I'm trying to do is say, okay, how can we connect 475,000 associates? What can we do to make a difference to where they have that light bulb that goes off that says, oh my God, this is the orange-blooded culture, and this is what we can do. You can have great success in your life. And to tell those stories really resonates. So we do quite a bit of that in the stores.
So let's talk a little bit more about the Team Depot. Is that something that is, well, two questions. First, who at a store level or at a region level, is there somebody who owns that initiative and says, okay, here's the project we're going to do? How does that, who's got responsibility for Team Depot in a store?
So every store has a Team Depot captain. Okay. And what they do is work with the nonprofit provider in their communities. And sometimes we'll do it as a district, and sometimes we'll do it as a store. Sometimes we have foundation events that are huge, where our vendors come in together with us and help. And they're responsible for finding the right project. And it could be an hourly associate. This is what's so amazing, David. This is why I love our people so much. Because on a Team Depot project, it's voluntary to go out there. They volunteer. And many of our associates will volunteer after their shift or before their shift and go out and give hours of work. And they love to do it. It's not like anybody says, oh, I don't want to go to Team Depot. People fight to sign up for Team Depot. And that's how come I know our people are so amazingly special, because our people want to help others and want to make a difference. And that's what's so amazing about our people. I mean, that's why I work so hard, is because I love the fact that they'll go out there and you'll see a sea of orange, David. You got to go on a project with me. Come to one of my foundation projects. I mean, when you see what we do, we're touching lives all over everywhere, the country. And it's for the purpose of giving back. And that unites us. I mean, it's a huge thing. And the community captains do a great job running the program. I have community captains that I talk to on a consistent basis because I want to get the feedback, and I have them also working on helping me drive the culture message, on connecting the people. So I have them working on that too, because it's another angle for me to touch somebody. So I'm working through them, and they love it. I mean, they love being on my culture committee.
That's great. And so what, I mean, if you were to guess, not holding you to this, but what percentage of associates in a given year will have worked on a Team Depot? Is it 10%? Is it 70%?
I would say it would be closer to 35 to 40%.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're trying to do is, since it does connect the heartstrings, is some of our newer associates to come out to the sites, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because then same thing can happen to them that happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing we're trying to do, and we haven't got it done yet, I'm working on it,
mm-hmm.
is remote associates. The remote associates that are across the country
mm-hmm.
to have an opportunity to come out to their local community and connect, because remote associates don't feel that connection. So we're trying to build that to bring them in the fold.
So I have a guess about this, but I'm curious. So over your whole career of culture building at Home Depot, if there was one project or initiative that you're most proud of, is it Team Depot? Is it what would be the project or initiative that you're most proud of your career at Home Depot?
Oh, that's a tough one, because I'm proud of so much. So, when I think about, if you ask me, when is my proudest times and moments, it's when I get to see an associate that buys their first car, or buys their first home, or gets promoted to a department head, or gets promoted to an assistant manager, store manager. To me, those are very proud moments, because I get to see them start creating their dreams, right? And just bringing it to life. So for me, that's one of my most proud moments. Those moments in time are just so special. And the other is Team Depot projects. I mean, when you go out and you see what we do with the veterans and the communities, when you get to be a part of that and see the sea of orange and see the finished project, you'll see the beginning, and it's like, holy moly, we got a long day. And then you see it all come together there can be, in some cases, 100 people out there in orange shirts, all working together. And I get to see the difference it makes. And to me, those are very proud moments too, because we work for such an amazing company that gives back and lets us do that. I
remember that there was a project I had worked on as a volunteer many years ago in my own hometown. There's a company, it's an interesting company, maybe you've seen them, called Robert Leathers, and they build community playgrounds. And they have this methodology where they involve an entire community in building this playground, and everything from sourcing the material to building it to feeding people. And it's a 3-day, almost like a barn raising, where for 3 days, the entire community gets together and builds this amazing playground. And I had played a leadership role in one of those 20 some years ago in my community. But I remember the feelings that you're describing of looking around and seeing, a couple of 100 people from all walks of life coming together, eating meals together, building, working, collaborating. It was certainly for me the most inspiring community service project I've ever been a part of.
I try to tell people that. I mean, you should be proud of that, because this is the thing. Life is all about what difference you make, right? And for us, I mean, I'm glad you experienced it. I want you to come to one of ours.
Yeah.
Come out to one of ours with me, because it's so much fun. And the best part about it, I mean, we have vendors that will be participants. We have people from all levels. And like I said, you leave the title where you came from, because title doesn't matter out there. I can carry mulch just like anybody else, right? And the titles aren't what makes it special. What makes it special is it's all a bunch of people, human beings, just trying to make a difference together. And I got to tell you, there's nothing more rewarding than that difference to me, and it gives you purpose. So that's such a huge thing here that we absolutely love.
That's great. So as you think about the future of Home Depot, and what do you think is the biggest threat to the company's culture?
Honestly, I think the biggest threat would be losing the connection of our associates, or the majority of our associates. And to me, that threatens our culture, because we've got to make sure we hit all generations to where we give them hope and the why they need to stay with us. And it's really important that all leaders lean into that, so we don't lose that special ingredient that has made us so unbelievably special as a company and a family. and the threat of the different generations and not changing styles and connecting with each generation and getting the hook for each group, each person, to make them feel that culture. That scares me today. I mean, it scares me every day I get up, because I want to make sure somebody has the opportunity in the future that I've had, because you can't make this stuff up. I mean, I've been blessed beyond measure with my career and being a part of something so special, bigger than I thought I could ever been a part of. And I want to make that, pave that for the future. And if we don't find all connection points to do that and live it every day, that scares me. That's a threat. Got to figure out, how can I be out there more? How can us as an organization of leaders fuse those different generation gaps and connect them, their hearts somehow, so they see the opportunity?
Is there any of those generations that you found so far is more challenging to see that opportunity than others?
I would say, when you look at the younger generation, obviously, very different environment that they're growing up in than we did, right?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's on their phone. Everybody's connecting through, in 5 seconds, they can be communicated to on Salesforce. And, you really got to connect with their why. What is their why? What do they want to be there for? And if you find some of the different generations, you can get a hook by saying, maybe it's the environment that they care about, or they care about making a difference. There's different taglines for each one. And I would say connecting with the younger generation to make sure that they understand the opportunity exists, and make them stay with us and not job change. Because a lot of people in today's world wants to jump to the next job. And if they stay with us, they can have, like me, 50 jobs in one career. I mean, I've changed titles so many times in my career and learned something new constantly. And I think that needs to be communicated and gotten to the younger generation.
Well, and it's an interesting challenge you're raising, because certainly anecdotally, my experience is that the younger generation, whichever we want to describe that as, tends to value permanence less so than previous generations. So they are more transient in nature. You see young people who work somewhere for a couple of years and might even just take 6 months off and go travel for 6 months and then go do something else and then go try and move to another country for a little while and so the value of owning your own home and owning your car and having a career path, many of them don't value that in the same way that other generations did. Neither, that's not good or bad. It's just different.
It's very different. I mean, when you look at what goes on today versus the past, I mean, it is so different, because a lot of the younger generation doesn't want to stay a long time at a company because they feel they can go somewhere quickly. To your point, go on a cruise or go on a trip, But one thing that is really special inside of our depot is we can connect with those younger associates and get them to believe. We just have to take the extra time to do that and to hear why are they there and how can we help them, because it's a very different world than it was 39 years ago. But I still have hope that we can make a difference and get them to understand, because if they stay, I mean, I've had a lot of people come up and say, yeah, I've moved from this job to this job. And when I tell them 39 years, some of them look at me like, oh my God, you've been here 39 years. I'm like, hold up. I changed jobs several different times. I've learned different avenues of business, because sometimes there's like, oh my God, but we got to connect with them, because that is our future.
Yeah. Well, this has been a fascinating conversation, Crystal. I admire your obvious passion and commitment to not only Home Depot, but the culture, the whole connecting people and having a purpose more than anything. Obviously, you bleed orange, as you say, and it's impressive that what you've been able to accomplish. If people wanted to learn more about you or about Home Depot's culture, where would they find out more?
Now that's a question right there. As far as the culture, you can always reach out to your local store from a cultural perspective and talk about the values in the inverted pyramid with our leadership teams. I'm obviously always available to talk about culture, because I talk about it all the time. And you can pull up the Built from Scratch that talks about, that's in our external site to be able to see what Home Depot's doing from a cultural perspective and giving back perspective.
So Built
that's
from
a good way
Scratch.
to do it. Yeah.
Great. Well, that's great. I appreciate that. And so again, thank you so much for joining us on Culture Architects. Fascinating story and a great example for our audience of how culture can be done in a massive company. Because again, as I said earlier, most of my experience and the experience of many of our listeners is working in smaller companies where culture is equally important, but I would say relatively easier if you've got 100 people than if you've got 475,000 people. So the proof that you represent and that Home Depot represents that it can be done at scale, that culture isn't something that's only available in smaller companies, but it can be done at scale and done very effectively, is a really an impressive proof case of what's possible and ultimately the impact of it. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, David. I've enjoyed talking to you, and you come to one of my projects.
I'd like to do it.
Sounds good. Thank you.